everyone. My name is Hannah. I am a career and college coordinator here at Washburn. I am just finishing my first year in this role here, but I previously was at Washburn as the project success facilitator for the past 4 years. So very familiar with Washburn and also very familiar with financial aid. It's weird, but I kind of love financial aid a lot. It's kind of a puzzle, and I enjoy that. So if you have any questions, I'll open it up for questions at the very end. I'll try and time it out so you have a good amount of time if any questions do arise. So, financial aid, what exactly does financial aid mean? It is money that helps you go to college. So that can mean a lot of different things. That can mean scholarships. Private scholarships that you apply for, or institutional scholarships, which are scholarships that you get from the school in your financial award letter. Financial aid can also mean grants. That is also free money. You don't have to pay grants back. Typically, grants are coming from the federal government. One that is very familiar with most folks is the Minnesota State Grant. We also have work study. Work study is where you have a job on campus. You are not given that money. You have to work for that money. And then they will tell you how much you can earn on your award letter. And then lastly, we have educational loans. Those money you got to pay back. So the ultimate goal is to not have to take out loans. But on average, students are taking out loans to pay for school. We've got unsubsidized and subsidized loans, and I'll talk a little bit about the difference in the later slides. So how do you get financial aid? You get financial aid by filling out one of two applications. I laid them out side by side. We've got the Fafsa. That is the free application for federal student aid. This is to receive federal and state aid to go to college. You use the Fafsa if you have a social security number or an I-94 number or a green card. For the Minnesota DREAM Act, that is to receive Minnesota state aid, and you would fill out that application if you do not have an SSN or a green card number. So you're only filling out one of those applications, whether that's the Fafsa or the Minnesota DREAM Act. One of those applications is required in order to receive grants, scholarships, work study, and federal loans. Oftentimes, a lot of families are like, well, I don't want to take out loans, so I'm not going to do the Fafsa. We recommend you still fill it out because you are then eligible for those school scholarships, free money, grants from the Minnesota government, free money, and work study, which is money that you are earning to either pay for college or to have some money in your pocket to buy textbooks, personal items, fun money, whatever. So we highly, highly recommend you do fill it out, even if you're thinking, I'm not going to take out loans or I don't want to take out loans. So a little bit of the steps to get this money, financial aid. First, you got to apply to college. Then, if you are a current 11th grader, when you're a senior, you will be gathering your parents' tax forms from the year 2021. If you as a student, if you are a current junior, rising senior, and you worked, you would be bringing in either your W-2s, or if you did file taxes, you would be bringing in your tax forms, 1040. And then if you are filling out the Fafsa, you would be creating an FSA ID. That FSA ID is like your username or your account to fill out your Fafsa. Both the student and a parent will need an FSA ID because that is what you will use to sign that application. When you are filling out the Fafsa, you are filling it out through the student, and then the parent is signing it. We've had some students where the parents fill out the Fafsa under their FSA ID, and then it gets really confusing. So student fills out the Fafsa, parent signs it. So then you are filling out that financial aid application, whether it's the Fafsa or the Minnesota DREAM Act. You then receive some sort of receipt from that application. That could be either the student aid report or an email you get from the Minnesota or federal government. And on there we'll have your estimated family contribution, or EFC. That number is an index number that essentially the Fafsa calculates to figure out how much you as a family could contribute to your student's education. Those numbers range from 0 to $999,999. Obviously, you want the lowest number possible, which would be 0, but there's obviously a range. The government will then receive or send your Fafsa or your Minnesota Dream Act to the colleges that you have applied to. That's why we typically recommend that students are applying to college first, gathering those materials to then fill out that financial aid application. So then when you are filling out that Fafsa, you are putting in the schools you want it to get sent to, and then you will receive a financial aid award letter in the winter/spring. On that award letter, we'll be told what scholarships you received from the school, the grants, the work study, and the loans. And then with that information, you can also then make a financially responsible decision where you want to go to school, hopefully by May 1st. So what are kind of the things that you need in order to fill out the Fafsa? Social Security number or some sort of identification number, the parents' ID numbers, birthdays, marriage or divorce dates, parents' 2021 federal income tax, and the students as well if they worked or filed taxes. In the CCC, we have paper copies of a checklist that students can grab and kind of like fill out, and so they can show those parents what you need to have. We also have it online as well, so you can kind of gather all of those materials, sit down, and do it hopefully in one fellow swoop. So here are just once again kind of the steps you will be taking to do your financial aid application, going to fafsa.gov or the Minnesota Office of Higher Ed, creating that FSA ID. We do have a worksheet that has your, like, how to create your FSA ID. The big thing that a lot of students are coming up with is that FSA ID or username is connected to your social security number. So it's really, really hard to retrieve that back if you forget it or you forget your password. So we encourage students to fill out the worksheet so then you use that the following year when you fill out the Fafsa the next year. You do want to be completing a Fafsa every single year you are in school. So if you're going to school for 2 years, you're filling out the Fafsa twice. Going to school for 4 years, 4 times, so on and so forth. So just some tips and tricks in terms of financial aid. You want to fill it out as early as possible. Fafsa and Minnesota Dream Act open October 1st. A lot of schools like U of M, Madison, they do have financial aid deadlines. Those deadlines are typically March 1st. So if you can get your Fafsa done between October 1st and March 1st, you're in like a prime spot of getting it done on time. You can obviously fill out your Fafsa after March 1st. You just might not be eligible for some of those school scholarships or grants or anything like that. But we definitely have students here who are still filling out their Fafsa now, and it's May. So it's something that we encourage to do right away, but sometimes there's hiccups and all of that. Another thing, write your name exactly as it appears on your social security number or on your social security card. We typically ask students to take a photo of it if they are completing their Fafsa here in the CCC at Washburn, especially if you have a hyphenated last name or if you go by a nickname. Like I said, that social security number is connected to your name, which is connected to your FSA ID, so you want it all the same throughout. There is a step in between filling out your Fafsa and getting a financial award letter, and that's called verification. Not all students go through verification. It can sound a little scary because you're like, oh shoot, did I do something wrong? Did I fill it out incorrectly? And it's something you do want to fill out accurately because money is involved. But verification is essentially the school's way of saying we need a little bit more information before we give an award letter. So you can be verified because of your name, you can be verified due to income, you can be verified with how many people are in your family. Schools will always be giving you lots of emails, and they'll be telling you that you are in verification process and what sort of steps you need to take. So if there's one sort of like big thing I can say, big piece of advice, students, check your email. Let's say it one more time. Students, check your email. You're going to get bombarded by colleges, and it's going to be a little overwhelming, so maybe start to create some sort of system. Because they will be sending you a lot of communication via your email, and you don't want to miss out on verification and then not get an award letter and then not know how much you have to pay. For the FAFSA, your parents are only your biological parents. There are only very specific reasons why you may not use those. Parents, if you have any questions on that, I would be happy to go into that a little bit further based on your situation.
Personally then?
Yeah. You are considered a dependent until you are 25. So a lot of times students are thinking, well, if I'm going to school and I'm 18, do I have to give my parents information, financial information? And unless you are in a very specific situation, like an emancipated minor, highly mobile, you are going to need to have your family's tax information. You can do an override. That doesn't necessarily mean, though, colleges will accept that. And then there are some schools, they are mostly private colleges, that require another financial aid application. So you would be completing the Fafsa and something called the CSS profile. Some schools in Minnesota that require the CSS profile are schools like McAllister, St. Olaf, Gustavus. Usually there are smaller private liberal arts colleges, but we do have a list of those schools on our Washburn CCC website. So once again, you'll fill out your FAFSA. Schools will be emailing you, telling you to fill out that CSS profile. Make sure you're checking your email. It is just like a heftier version of the FAFSA. Okay. Reciprocity forms, that is through the Minnesota state grants. You'll do that through the FAFSA. You usually don't have to fill out those forms. So just kind of seeing your senior year in a timeline sort of fashion. September or earlier, you're starting to maybe identify what are those financially safer schools. Those are typically schools in Minnesota. You are creating that FSA ID, submitting your FAFSA or Minnesota DREAM Act. If it's required, submitting that CSS profile, getting that receipt, that student aid report, completing verification, and then comparing those financial aid awards. It's a lot of steps, and that is just one aspect of financial aid. I will be going through how the Washburn CCC supports students in that financial aid process, but just so you guys all know and have an understanding of what that timeline is as well. So like I said, grants, that is free money based on financial need. You don't have to pay it back. Federal Pell Grant, you can get a max of $6,895. There is then the CEOG grant, which is if you have very limited funding for college, priority is given to students with exceptional need. And then we've got the Minnesota State Grant. This is for Minnesota residents who are planning on attending a Minnesota school. There are some institutional grants as well, so grants that are given from the school itself. You will not be eligible for any of these unless you fill out a FAFSA. So then once again, we've got work study. It's not given money, you have to earn it. It is given by the schools. My work study job was working in the cafeteria and also working at the info desk at McAllister. Once you have been awarded work study, you have to be the one to find the job and then to actually work the job. It is not always guaranteed. Looking at financial award letters currently, you can earn around $2,500 to $6,000 depending on the school with work study. We've then got loans, the money that you have to pay back. Federal loans, they have the lowest interest, so if you are planning on taking out a loan, doing the Fafsa and getting those federal loans are the most favorable. There are subsidized loans and unsubsidized loans. So subsidized loans, that interest is not accruing while you are in school. So you are getting that loan money dispersed to you, and then interest does not start growing until you graduate or you stop attending school. Then we have the unsubsidized loans, where you are receiving that loan that's being dispersed to you, and then interest starts growing while you are in school. So obviously the most favorable loan to take out would be that subsidized, and then that unsubsidized loan would be the second most favorable. For both of these loans, a credit check is not required, and students will have those loans under their name, not the parent's name. That is different then from the Parent Plus loan. This is a loan that is in the parent's name for educational expenses. It is a little confusing sometimes because when you see those award letters, it will show a Parent Plus loan and it looks like you are just given it, but parents do have to get approved for it, and there is a credit check on those Parent Plus loans. So just keeping that in mind as you are navigating what loans if you are taking those out. Scholarships. So they are awarded on a plethora of different things: academic merit, personal or ethnic identity, athletics, other factors, involvement in student groups, location, religious affiliation. Most of the scholarships students are earning are from the college itself, so there's actually no outside application. 90% of scholarships that students are winning are from the schools, versus 10% of the scholarships that are actually gotten are outside scholarships or private scholarships. It is very common for a student to apply to 10 scholarships and only get one, if any. So it is almost like another job in applying to those scholarships, and those applications have deadlines starting November 1st all the way through mid-May, mid-June, anything around those lines. Biggest thing is beware of those scholarship scams. We do have a list on our CCC website, which I will show, that kind of just have like the best reputable scholarship sites, as well as the scholarship list that Erica and I recommend for students from Washburn to apply to, because all of those scholarships Washburn students have won in the past. So we do have a list on our Washburn CCC website. This is kind of the list that I was talking about before. You're on the site, and if you click Washburn Scholarship List, it's all crossed off now because we cross out the deadlines as they pass, but a ton of different scholarships students can be applying to with links, deadlines. We try and organize it as much as possible, and it is updated almost weekly by myself and Erica. Let's be real, Erica. It's too much for me. Erica updates it.
A lot of other things, Hannah.
And then we also have the Ccc Newsletter. This is a monthly newsletter, and we always try and highlight a ton of scholarships on there as well that we think a lot of Washburn students might be eligible for. So how does the Washburn Career and College Center support Washburn students? We offer financial aid Thursdays. This is during 6th hour every Thursday starting in October when the Fafsa application opens. And this is when students can come into the CCC and do their Fafsa or Minnesota Dream Act with myself or Erica and ask questions, get help, all of that. We do these for financial aid Thursdays throughout the rest of the year. We're still hosting them even in May. And students can sign up for those in Naviance. We also host about a couple financial aid nights. So those are in the evenings where students and families can come do the Fafsa with a lot of financial aid experts. We offer language support for that. So then you are able to complete your Fafsa on that night. And then we also offer individual appointments. So if you and your student want to come to the CCC and complete it, we would be more than happy to do it on an individual basis. So if you are on our Washburn CCC website, you can go to it through the counseling site, Career and College Center, click on website. All of the information that I quite literally just threw to all of you guys is under the financial aid tab. We've got information on the Fafsa, DREAM Act, that scholarship spreadsheet is under the scholarship list. And then we also have this college planning workbook where juniors, as you are going into your senior year, you can utilize this as a way to keep yourself organized with all of those college applications. Right here, those scholarship applications here. And then you are also able to, once you get those award letters, plug it into the spreadsheet and start comparing costs. I really like this spreadsheet because if you are putting in the grants and the loans, it will calculate how much your bill would be, how much loans you would be taking out, as well as an estimated loan payment after you graduate. We've been using this tool with seniors, and so as a junior rising up to a senior, we love to introduce this so then students can start looking at it and filling it out. Other than that, I did just say a lot. I want to open it up for questions because we have about 5 minutes. But any questions, comments, concerns, FAFSA, financial aid? Yeah?
Yeah, at what point does it make no sense to go for the need-based? Like, what's the income level?
I would personally suggest that regardless of that level, to do it your first year, especially if you, a lot of scholarships at a school will need the FAFSA even if it's merit-based. So if you want to be eligible for those scholarships, even if they're merit-based, you still need to fill out that FAFSA. If after the first year you're realizing all you're getting is loans and you have other ways of financing your education, then maybe stop doing it, but we always recommend doing it at least that first year.
And one thing I'd add too is that some colleges will have different levels depending on what the makeup is, and it can change from year to year. They might have a year where they didn't get as many requests, or just the makeup of the class of students they're admitting, and so it can go a little bit like this, and sometimes private schools will have different amounts that they can give out. So I think Hannah's right. I think it makes sense to do it at least the first year.
And then also any outside scholarships too may require that student aid report or receipt from the FAFSA. So then if you want to be completing those scholarships, to complete that is a good step.